With that, let's move to call to order the EPR meeting. Consent of the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please. This evening we have a. Oh, you're doing? Okay.
Yep. Mrs. Catrillo is absent. Mrs. Bear,
I am present.
Mr. Goldstrand,
Present.
Mrs. Kulik is absent, and sitting in tonight with us is Mr. Andrews.
Present.
Congratulations and welcome.
Are you all thank you for being the alternate chair this evening? The alternate member. All right, I need a motion to adopt this evening's agenda for June 5th, 2025, with members of the committee reserving the right to add to the agenda and take further action in the district's best interest.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
Mm-mm.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion moves. Approval of minutes
So moved.
Second.
from May 1st, 2024.
So moved.
Okay. Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. All right, before we move on to items for discussion, Ms. Trillo can't be here this evening, so she wanted to make sure that we definitely acknowledge the North and the South salutatorians and valedictorians. I will mention that I think I speak for the rest of the board, and the ceremonies were fantastic, even though unfortunately we had some hiccups where we had to come inside, but we don't have control of Mother Nature. I think they were well done, and I think everybody had an excellent time at both. I know your speech was very well done, as well as the speeches at South. So with that being said, at North, we'd like to acknowledge, the salutatorian, Imani Quarterman, and the valedictorian, Teo Melissa. And at South, we'd like to acknowledge the salutatorian, the board's very own Carl Ludwig, and he's ours.
Right, like he is.
And the valedictorian, Malka Parker. All right. With no further delay, I'd like to move on for items of discussion. We're going to go right to B, which is the data warehouse and analytics.
All right, thank you, Mr. Goldstrand. So
Mr. Schneider just has red triangles on his screen with an exclamation point.
That doesn't
I
bode well.
think I have. Oh, no.
You can come back to B if you'd like.
I'll have to rejoin.
Let's see.
We'll go to C.
Have me go back to the agenda.
Third wheel. Ms. Jones, you there? Okay.
Cartwheel.
Cartwheel.
Okay,
All
all
right.
right, have it.
No.
Okay.
All right, going back to B.
I can, if you want to start, then I can catch up.
You can even sit at the table with us.
What?
You're a part of the.
Come sit.
community.
Just come on, sure.
Don't bite. I know you don't bite.
Okay, so one of the biggest concerns in our district that we know is our students' mental health. This past year, we had over 8,000 student assistance program referrals. And so one of the things I've been tasked with was looking at different ways to address mental health, especially where barriers do exist in areas of transportation, language, insurance, and so forth. So telehealth is definitely moving forward in the future of mental health services. So I'm going to kind of talk about the different mental health telehealth platforms that I have vetted out. There is lots of them out there. And so I tried to narrow it down to a couple that we can talk about. So the first one we looked at was Sonar. And Sonar is actually our least expensive. It's about $15,000 a year. However, it's an AI-powered text-based support And it uses a chatbot called Sunny, and that is supervised by trained well-being companions, and it's designed for accessibility in schools. Some of the limitations is that it's not a true therapy provider. It refers out for more intensive needs and services, which can be a challenge due to our local providers shortages. Sorry, a little bit ahead of that, so it's okay. Next one. Next. Next. There we go. Our next one that I looked at is a company called Gaggle. It was about $240,000 for about a 2-year service, servicing about 150 students. And that's for about 10 sessions for each of those students. It's licensed therapists that would be providing the therapy services. Their fees are a little pricey, with the intake being about $200, and then individual sessions being between $135 to $155. Groups is about $230 per session or per group. And if you have a missed appointment, it's a $60 fee. There is no billing to insurance, so there is actually no cost to families. And the next slide. And then the last one I looked at was Cartwheel, which is the one I'm recommending. It's about $65,000, and it would service between 101 and 150 students. They do accept all major insurance plans, including Medicaid for both Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, and which is definitely a concern in our area. We have a lot of students that have New York and New Jersey insurances, and they have a hard time accessing local services. They will do 8 students for free, which is under their in-kind service. And then they provide our family therapy individual. They can do psychiatric evaluations and medication management. It is staff support. They also have support for our staff, up to 20 staff members if they need, some additional therapy or would be interested in therapy, with no wait list. After that, there potentially could be a wait list, but they would try to turn that around as fast as possible. The available hours are from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And then they have a portal for us to track referrals and outcomes. So the family's insurance would be billed, and they would have to meet their copays and deductibles and so forth. However, with the Medicaid, there is no copays and no deductible to be met. So those students were referred, but also families are willing to pay for, their mental health services. I do outpatient therapy. And so it's definitely has a lot of benefits for our students, and also for our school district as well. We have money through our PCCD grant that we can reallocate to cover, believe about $38,000 to $40,000 of that cost. So it's limited cost to the district. And so again, I guess the next one, I kind of skipped ahead, sorry. So again, that is, Cartwheel is definitely my recommended. It was actually a board member who saw them present at a conference and provided them with our information. And so I had been in contact with them, as well as a couple others that had reached out during our PCCD grant time to really kind of vet them out. And I worked with another mental health person in our district to kind of see where some of those barriers were, especially in the North area. And so we really wanted to make sure that we would be able to meet their needs, especially in those buildings. And the last thing I really like about Cartwheel is also the family therapy component that they will do for the younger kids. Telehealth is not always the greatest for your 7, 8, 9-year-olds. Distraction, it's hard to stay focused, but they actually do a lot with family therapy. And as an outpatient provider as well, family therapy and caregiver therapy is really just as important as the child's coming together to meet their needs. So that is it. Any questions for me?
So can you just clarify? So the cost is 65,000, but we bill the insurance. How does that?
So the cost with that is that oversight of the, intake, getting them, the services. It's considered like the case management component for it. So that's where that cost comes from, is overseeing. So we would pay for that component. They have a portal that we would be able to see the progress, the students, if they're being, consistent within the services, as long as the parent does sign that agreement. And The sales rep did say about 98% of the families do. And it doesn't give them like insight into like what their session's about, because that's privacy. But it does provide us if they are meeting with their therapist, if they are making progress or staying consistent. And
Is this a remote program or is it
This is,
a
so it would be-
person to person?
it's a remote, it's telehealth, but it would be an enhancement to what we already offer within our mental health professionals that provide services to reduce our wait list and get kids seen quicker.
So right now, local providers can't handle the volume of need. So locally, they just, and there's wait lists that are months, right, Shay?
Yes.
I mean, months.
We're talking 6
I-
months.
As
or
a parent, I
longer.
like going through that with my kids.
And
yeah.
your child's in crisis, you have a major concern, you're trying to get your child support, and there's nothing. So although we recognize the challenges of telehealth, we also see this as a nice stopgap,
Yep.
to just help somebody kind of immediately intervene. And the caregiver support is really
Yep.
important to us. So as Shay said, this is included in the PCCD grants and already included in our budget. So it's already baked into next year's budget.
And I'm glad we're still doing
Yes, thank you.
it.
Just a couple questions. The number of referrals that you had mentioned earlier, what number of those, say percentage wise of those referrals, do you think would need this service? Like, are we within the bounds of the number of students, and what if we exceeded? Would that
So-
be okay for provide the service for them?
Yeah, our wait list has not been over 150 students at any given point. We do have students that have, only a couple of buildings have we had wait list, really. But this would be that family therapy, I know was such an important thing, especially for our elementary buildings. That was something that was discussed multiple times with me, like we really need that family component and that connection and, all of that really amazing parent work that gets done, or caregiver work. And so it would definitely enhance. I do not foresee us going over, and it's about 1%. And we had a lot of staff referrals this past year, and they increase steadily, but it's also that we recognize that we have staff available as opposed to like before I started. So our increase there, the recognition of like the services that we offer through staff has been really incredible. And so
Well, having the service is extremely important. I just want to make sure that if in a situation where we need to go over the 150, that we do have that option to be able to still provide
Yes.
services, whatever the additional amount may cost, but the
yes,
services-
absolutely.
The services outweigh the,
Yes.
okay.
And this is just overflow?
It's for that and for those students that really need that family component
Okay.
as well. So, and really looking at the kids that have the insurance that wouldn't actually cost them as well. So like, some of our Medicaid families and things like that, especially with that New Jersey, New York component, that has just been such a challenge and ongoing, especially in our North Campus. And so I had talked with Dave Falbo, it's a school counselor up at High School North, and he actually met with a couple of the reps via, a Zoom meeting to kind of like talk and ask the questions that I might not actually know, because I have not actually worked in that position at High School North. So I'm like, hey, like, can you help me and support somebody and ask some questions? And he did, and it was really super helpful for myself and that learning process, but also for making sure that we chose something that was going to be supportive.
And can parents opt for this if they prefer telehealth versus going into an office or dealing with somebody locally?
We can definitely work on that. We have to work on how we're going to do that referral process and procedure, and those are all great things, but yes.
Shay, thank you for kind of leading the charge on this and just making sure that our students and families get what they need. So just know we appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
And I do want to mention before we move back up to big, that, just saying SAP referrals, the amount of work that you and everybody else in that particular area have to do in order to get to this point is an extensive amount of work. And I want to commend, you for moving forward with making this and acknowledging for that position and, getting us to where we are. So I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it. Thank you.
We appreciate it.
All right, any other questions? Discussion? Moving to B, data warehouse and analytics.
Thank you, Mr. Goldstrand. Take two.
For real.
So we started talking about different ways that we can break down our students' data. And while Sapphire has capabilities for some data mining, there really are 3 key people in the district that are capable of diving in to retrieve that data. And one is Dr. Pipperato, who is unfortunately leaving us. So our pool would be down to 2, one being Ms. Polemounter, and the other being Ms. Johnson. So the need to have teachers and principals and all of us at central administration to be able to access strong data and usable data to help that drive instruction is extremely important. So we started looking at some solutions for this. And the first of which that we looked at is called Linkit. Linkit is used by 25% of all 25% of all Pennsylvania student data flows through Linkit. Some local districts who use this platform, Pocono Mountain, Delaware Valley, and Nazareth. And Dr. Vitale also initiated this program at Abington Heights. All account managers for the company are former Pennsylvania educators. There's secure uploading of all data through an FTP site nightly. And what this will do is it will provide projections as well as comparison reports of data from the county, from the IU, based on size and demographic and economic status. And there are some prices. I have an updated quote that we were able to update after this presentation was made to include a little bit of a more robust platform. So what Linkit does, it has data warehousing, assessment solutions where teachers can actually use Linkit to create tests, and then those local assessments can be compared to state assessments. They will pull our IXL data, our Acadience data. It will put that next to the state assessments so that we can see on an ongoing basis how our students are doing with concepts. There are Navigator analytics. We can create custom reports, as well as an intervention manager. And I'm not going to go into depth on that because for our current recommendation, we don't want to overload everyone and get right into the intervention manager. So we are looking solely at the analytics side of this particular solution. As you can see on here, this is what the dashboards would look like from a district administrator, a building, a supervisor, or a teacher. And everyone can pass down aspects to their next group. So district administrators can pass down to everyone, including building administrators. Building administrators can push down dashboards to everyone, and as can supervisors pushing down to teachers. So they can create a dashboard for goals that they are setting as educational leaders in the building. And then teachers can quickly see the data, and it's in a friendly format that they will actually be able to use it where they're not searching for something or trying to make spreadsheets and spending hours on end. It's actually being populated for them. Break it down by their periods, break it down by students. It really is a pretty user-friendly system. So as you can see here is one of the screens that you would see. PSSA Keystone's Access will go right in it for our English language learner students. And then this one has common math assessments as well as attendance. So you can run data in multiple different ways to really help you dig into how our students are doing. And this is what the data will come up looking like. So you see they use the color coding system. It is really easy to read. It's interactive. So if you just start clicking on colors, you'll get students' names. And so you can really dive in and tailor your instruction based on students' needs. So this is disaggregating data by rosters and demographics. So it goes into school rosters. It also looks at student demographics and how they performed on different assessments. And then here are the IXL data that is imported and coming right in. You see you have your graphs, easy to read, and it's really click and get it. And in IXL, we get good data points back, but you have to dig for them. And you have to it's a lot of clicks, where Linkit wouldn't have as many clicks. And then individual student data portfolios. We spoke with the company and they worked their homogeneous grouping capabilities into our quote, which normally would only come with the MTSS add-on, which is quite significant. But I think the people from Linkit see a really positive potential partner with us, and ultimately are willing to show us everything that it can do and working with us in the pricing with that. So this would be an example of our ELL data points. And because I just didn't want to come to you with one proposal, Frontline had reached out. Now we use Frontline for our absent management system, and they use data analytics through the Forecast 5 platform, and Frontline had purchased that. So we use it for absence management, recruiting, time and attendance. They also have secure FTP uploads. We would have a data advisor assigned directly to the district. Another PA district that they gave to me was Huntingdon School District as another user of Frontline's data analytics. There is a one-time $10,000 setup fee that would only come into play this year, and the yearly cost for that is $22,500. So year one would be $32,500 and then $22,500 after that. Their attendance analytics are pretty robust and interactive. Their assessment analytics, I believe they're working to get the market share that Linkit has, and they're building their program. We can upload specific data, but it's going to come from us. They don't have all the pass-betweens that Linkit has, where it's just going to pull information. And they do analysis by years and break down. This is at the district level, as it's showing different school data and breaking down performance versus attendance. And then they also create summary reports where at the district level, we can see big picture data trends. Does anyone have questions or anything for discussion?
Well, I was just wondering if, it sounds like we use Frontline for attendance right now, and then there's gonna be overlap if we did linked it with
No, we use Frontline for,
Our attendance.
for
For
the
personnel.
adults
Okay, gotcha, okay.
attendance.
Gotcha.
So
Use it for time and attendance for time clocks.
Oh, for people,
sorry,
for
Annie.
employees.
Yeah, and then it's employee attendance, and then we also use it for recruitment and hiring. So
the two
we use
completely
the
separate.
personnel side of it.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
So the attendance that Frontline would be pulling would be coming in from Sapphire. It
Mhm.
does work and communicate with Sapphire student information system, as does Lincoln. So both will communicate with Sapphire and be able to pull attendance, discipline, things like that we can break down.
And then the data that goes in, like test scores and things, is it, how does that pull in? Is it from the state? Do we have to input that
So
information?
when we get our test data, like hopefully tomorrow, we're
Mhm.
going to get our PSSA scores
Mhm.
in from the state in a raw data file.
Mhm.
And then that is taken and uploaded to an FTP server that we would have set up with either company that is chosen. And then from that server, within 48 hours, that'll be pulled in, broken down, and will appear in the platform.
so there's two different ways you can upload data. One is they can pull it from us,
That's what I was asking you.
or we can push it. They will just naturally pull from us, right?
IXL's with Linkit, IXL is a natural pull. The two
Okay.
companies work well together and they pull. Acadience, which is another platform that we use, will pull right into Linkit.
But Frontline will not. We have to push it.
We have to push it.
Which just means that somebody has to remember to do it all.
That's what I'm asking you.
Whereas if we have a regular cadence, it's a better scenario, the more we can just naturally push.
Right. If somebody happens to be absent, we
Mhm.
might not push it. Or...
Correct, yep.
So Frontline is more labor intense on our,
On our end, and in my opinion, is not as robust as Linkit is.
Okay.
I wanna put you on the spot. Okay, anything? So. So, I have experience with Lincoln and it's amazing. What it can offer. This is only the first, they have 4 different platforms that they can offer. This is just one of
I
the
think this is
4.
a level one.
This was something the district. So Mr. Sadowski, as Dr. Bradley had said to me, went to the previous superintendent about 2 years ago.
Mhm.
And had requested
remember that,
this. And it never came to fruition. So it has been stalled for about 2 years.
I was able to use it in 2 capacities as a teacher and then as a supervisor in language arts, so both as an admin and as a teacher, but beyond the time factor, right, all of what we can get. What was the benefit of it was truly the reports that we were able to do, and like she said, we could push it right down to our teachers. We as principals can set goals, as we have building goals, just like she has district goals, and we can monitor it. I am a huge fan of Pumpkin. Customer service is fantastic. So, and I was actually a trainer in our building, so it would really, it's easy to use. Sometimes I love it, but it's easy to use. I'm a huge proponent of it.
I was just gonna say that, obviously you're familiar with it. I'm familiar with it in Pocono Mountain as well. I'm glad that we've approved and hired a professional development coordinator. Because this is not something you learned in a prep period. Once and done. It is the amount of data that you were saying that you can generate, and that's probably the reason why you love it so much. You can actually get lost.
Mhm.
So you really need to focus. And so if you don't really know what you're doing and you're going in there, you're grabbing. So if you have that guidance before, and then you're saying like the administrators put together. It's a wonderful program. Like I said, we use it. I think just definitely definitely want to make
Absolutely.
sure that we have.
And it's not only just how to use the program, but what to do.
What you
with
have
those
is data.
points. So you have all that information.
Now what?
Well, great, now what do you do with it? And just working with our staff about what it means, what the information actually means, and then how can it help you inform your instruction.
And then parsing out the data that's relevant to what you need it for. Right? It's not gonna be the same as, social studies teacher is not gonna be the same as getting it for the math teacher.
Right,
So
Absolutely.
you have to go through it. So, yeah, Not gonna do that.
Okay.
Right.
So I think, Andy, your recommendation.
My recommendation would be link it. The updated quote that I have is $55,000. And I was able to move items around in the curricular budget for 25-26 to be able to cover that cost without looking to change the proposed curriculum budget.
So,
And Andy, thank you. You
Yeah,
turned
thank
this around pretty quickly.
Yeah.
When we decided, hey, let's go look at it. So kudos to you and your team. So thank you.
thank you.
And Amy and Heather and Devin.
Tabitha's been talking about this for a number of years, so it's fun to see it happen.
All right, move on to items for discussion D, restorative practices.
Thank you. So we this year have started on, we're just finishing year one of what we hope to be a 3 to 4 year effort in bringing restorative practices to the students and staff and our 11 buildings. And so we'd like to report on the work that we did this year and talk about what's to come and give you a little understanding of how we got to this place kind of in our restorative practices history. So our path really started pre-COVID. When I first got here, Mr. Borash had contracted with Discovery Ed to take about 40 secondary teachers through a training on instructional technology. And the goal was really helping teachers understand the richness of what technology can offer to help instruction, to help student engagement, to get really excited about the lessons. And we were probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 sessions into it when, and I'm going to attribute it to Dr. Greenwood. I'm not remembering completely now, but I'm pretty sure it was her when she finally said, Heather, this is great and we love it. And thank you for leading this. But our kids are coming in with so many issues. Socially and emotionally, they don't have the skills. They're not ready to live in community with each other. Our behaviors are through the roof. This is pre-COVID, right? And we love all these things. And we hope that they care about these things, but there's so much going on in their lives right now that they're not going to care about this until we attend to that. And that just kind of broke the whole meeting with teachers saying, I see that in my classroom too. I see that in my classroom too. And they were not complaining about these darn kids that come in and I can't get my lesson done. They were from their heart saying, it hurts me to see that our kids don't know how to be in healthy community with each other. And then COVID hit, right? So take all of that and all of the things that actually on the outside used to help our kids, like YMCA, like church youth group, like scouts, like athletic teams, they couldn't do. And they weren't in school with their kids, their friends, they were home alone. It was a mess. So whatever they experienced even pre-COVID, put a big exponential 2 on it, right? Post-COVID, it just went through the roof. So much so that even at the beginning of the academic, I'm getting ahead of myself, that was post-COVID. At the beginning of the academic 22-23 school year, I gave an opening address to the secondary staff trying to make the case for building belonging in your classroom is an academic issue. It's not a social emotional issue. If you want to get to Henry VIII, you got to figure out how to make sure that that student has what they need, that they can clear their mind for the day so that they can attend, so they can really understand what it is that you want to do. And I gave that nice little lecture, but we didn't have anything to support it beyond that. The leadership at that time wasn't ready to take that next step. However, the next year, what started to happen, as you know, our data in our district from suspensions, expulsions, our disciplinary, they just went through the roof. And so not only did students not know how to live in community with each other, it was so bad that we were kicking students out of our community. Over 50 that year, and it only went up the year after. It disproportionately hit our students with disabilities. And so our pupil services department started to say, time out, we need a solution. How can we address this? And so we went to the drawing board, and anybody who knows me knows that I've been talking about restorative practices for 11 years. My backstory is one that we don't need to hear tonight, but if you're interested, I will talk to you forever about it. I was in the right place at the right time in Palisades School District, Bucks County, when this whole thing started 27 years ago. It changed our school in a way that I've never seen done before. And so I've always been a proponent of it because it builds community in the classroom. And so the starting point for leadership at the time was saying, well, we don't think we want to do the whole thing, but there's a piece of that maybe our students who are experiencing these high rates of suspension and expulsion, let's just do the restorative conferencing piece, right? So when they do something that's so egregious that we need to exclude them from school, let's bring them together, let's train some administrators on how we do this restorative conferencing and bring them to the table and see how that works. By the end of the year, hardly any conferences had taken place, and it was not by want of trying from our admin team, but it was more because at the end of the year, our admin team was saying, we need the why. Like, you showed us the what, but we don't understand kind of why we're doing this work. You skipped to the second part, and we never got that first part that told the science of what is restorative practices. And they were looking at me and saying, Heather, can you just please tell us what restorative practices is? And so at that point, pupil services, they knew that I had not only been trained in it, but I was a train the trainer. So I was able to train students in our district. And so we got together a group of administrators last summer for the first time, and we trained them in what is restorative practices. Obviously, that is a whole session I could do all on my own for you, but I'm not. Instead, I'm going to give you about a 1-minute video to give you an overview of what restorative practices is in a nutshell.
Patterns that have long characterized human life are changing dramatically around the globe, diminishing social bonds between families, schools, workplaces, and communities. But humans are hardwired to adapt. Just as we need food, shelter, and clothing, we also need strong and meaningful relationships to thrive. With all this in mind, what is restorative practices? Restorative practices is an emerging social science that studies how to strengthen relationships between individuals and living communities. When put into practice, the effects are profound. In schools, students experience greater safety and sense of belonging, resulting in improved behavior, less bullying, and less violence. In workplaces, leaders facilitate direct communication among staff and address conflict as it arises. The result is higher performance, greater accountability, effective collaboration. In criminal justice, new options allow victims and offenders and family to repair the emotional harm caused by crime. Throughout our neighborhoods, restorative practices give regular people more voice in the issues that matter most. In a nutshell, restorative practices is the science of relationships and community, where individual daily interactions have a big impact on the world around you, your job, with young people, and throughout your community. How we relate matters. This video was brought to you by the International Institute for Restorative Practices. To learn more, attend their flagship event.
You don't need advertising. So restorative practices is really the art and science of building community, and when somebody harms that community, how to bring it back, right? So we don't have a whole lot of tools in education to do that. We go to school to prep school, we learn classroom management, and then when we get on the job, we have the student code of conduct, which we follow faithfully. But we've realized that the student code of conduct, between what we know and the student code of conduct, there needs to be something else. How do we make sure that we don't just have a good relationship with our students, but our students have a good relationship with each other, right? For me, I always call this the sub-test. If you're really doing restorative practices well, it's not about how well things are going when you're there as a teacher in the classroom. It's about how well things are going when you're gone and the sub is there, right? When your students really understand what it is to live in community with each other, then that's when the sub comes back to you and says, there was an issue, but the students dealt with it. That sounds like a utopia. I'm telling you, I experienced it and I promise you it's possible. So what did we do this year? With the help of Shay Jones and Carol Dean Gardner from our Pupil Services Department, they obtained a grant. And the board was kind enough to give me a stipend to do some of this training work this year. After we trained our first group of administrators, counselors, MTSS, FBA, bunch of different people this past summer. We opened it up volunteers to say, if you're interested in this at the secondary level. We didn't do it for elementary, not because we don't love elementary, but because they had so much curricular instruction and PD on their plate that to handle one more thing, I think would have made everybody not restorative. So we started with the secondary. And we formed a district committee. And at that point, I believe the board came to us and said, hey, do you have a plan? And our response was, well, Heather can put together a plan, but a plan is much better when the whole committee gets together, understands what they're doing, and then together says, we know Eastburg, and how are we going to do this at Eastburg? Because that's the most important way to deliver it. So we formed the committee and we made some goals together. So we have two sets of goals. Anytime you've done something like this, you know you've got the implementation goals, like how to get it off the ground, and then the impact goals. So did we do what we said we were going to do, and did it work in the vernacular? So our goals for this year were to create a restorative practice leadership infrastructure. And what we mean by that is we had a district committee, and then at our 4 buildings, we had a building restorative practice committee that led the work at the individual buildings. We didn't forget ESACA, we included ESACA, but they're in a really different situation, right? This is, they're digital, and so that relationship building happens in a little bit different way, and they decided to not create their own team, but to be sure that we're included in all of that. Number 2, we trained cohort 1 of volunteers. We were hoping that we would get about 10 to 20 people per building. We ended up training over 100 people in 5 different trainings. I thought maybe I would have to do 2, possibly 3. I did 5 over the year because the demand was there. So we were really excited about that. We wanted to make sure that we knew this was a good solution. We wanted it to continue long term. So we wanted to make a commitment to it in our formal planning documents. So our TSI, our APSI plans, our special education comp plan, we have restorative practices reflected in there as a research-based action solution that will help solve some of the issues that we're seeing in those buildings around attendance and discipline. And then lastly, we wanted to communicate to stakeholders about what is restorative practices and why it's such an important thing for our building. For impact goals, we're ambitious here. We thought we would like to survey our students. So students who were in classes of teachers who were trained. How did you feel before and how did you feel afterwards? We asked about, we looked at discipline data in the teacher's classroom, in the classrooms of the teachers who were trained, and we were looking at Smart Pass data. Our theory was that students who feel like they belong in the classroom, feel safe in the classroom, and want to be there, they're the ones who are not going to use the Smart Pass to go to the bathroom 10 times a day, right? So we struggled with what data is really going to show us this, and I just said, we need some data to at least try and to get us in the mode of data should drive our decisions. And so those are the 3 data points that we chose. How did we do? Did we reach our implementation goals? So restorative practice leadership teams are in place at every one of the secondary buildings. We did hold 5 training sessions and we trained over 100 staff and administrators. All of those were volunteers except for group 1. Group 1 was voluntold in the summer and they came in and they were compensated for their time in the summer. We did include restorative practice in TSI, ATSI, and special ed comp plans, and we're presenting today to the EPR committee. Hopefully in the years ahead, we can bring it out to our community also. I did not include this in the actual presentation, but in your folders, I did a quick restorative practices by the numbers. You'll see that we trained a total of 100 staff. For listeners, I'll just read this. We had 5 two-day trainings. One of the things that we said that we wanted was by the end of the year, and we said this in each of our trainings, our goal was to scale this up. I knew that not only was I going to retire, but any good model needs more than one trainer in the district. So we wanted to be sure to have a trainer event in the summer and scale it up. We were hoping to get 2 to 5 people really interested. You'll see that we had 9 people say, yes, we want to become trainers, and 9 more people said, maybe, can you give me more details about it? 18 out of 100 is a pretty good return for people who were really interested in the work. Our feedback on the training, I'm really happy with this. So I gave them a questionnaire at the end that was short and sweet and just said true, false, or other. And I did not ask at the end for, hey, do you have any comments for me, any notes, any other thoughts? I did not include that very purposefully. I wanted them at the end of 2 days to go, did I get it? Do I understand this? Do I understand this? Do I understand this? They did, the feedback came back that objective 1, 100% said they got it. 2, 100% said they got it. 3 said, 93% said, we got it, but we also feel we need more help in the future. Like, I got it right now after these 2 days, but talk to me in a month, I'm gonna feel like I need some more help. And then what was really helpful was unsolicited, 65 people wrote comments to me on that paper. Again, I didn't even put space on that paper for them to write comments. They wrote them in the margins. 64 of them were positive and only 1 of them was negative. So I thought that was really, from teachers can be a tough crowd sometimes. They don't want their time to be wasted. They're no nonsense. They know what it is like to build a good classroom. In your folders, I've included all of those comments, and not because I want you to take the time to read all the comments, but for a check on myself too. Sometimes you look at that and say, well, we're 64 of them really positive and 1 negative. So I gave you all the data so you can see for yourself. So again, that was the feedback from the training. Our feedback, we also implemented a weekly survey. So I told them, in order to help you with this work and remind you to focus on that, any school week with at least 4 days in it, at the end of that week, I'll send you a survey, and it was again quick and dirty. Hey, were you able to do some circles? Were you able to use affective statements? Were you able to use affective questions? And if you wanted to give us comments and feedback, feel free, but again, you didn't have to. So the feedback from that, I also included at the in your packets at the end there. And again, very positive. I think there were only 2 negative in there. And then there were a number of them that were, I think I get it, but I need more help or clarification or resources, that kind of thing. What I also did is I developed as the chair, a set of weekly reminders. So in our district, Joe and Diana, Maureen and Sean have a wonderful weekly tech tip. We get them every Tuesday. And so what I did is on Wednesday, I did a restorative practice tip. So it was either a reminder of something that they trained about or some resources for them, prompts to use when they were doing circle times, those kind of things. So every Wednesday, I pushed that out to them and got some feedback on that. Perhaps some of the most fun stories, though, are things and emails that we received and anecdotes from the field where people would say, oh my word, I tried this and it was terrible. Or, oh my word, I tried this and it was great. And so I wanted to hear really quickly, if Ms. Polemounter, if you don't mind, Ms. Polemounter, we were talking about this and she said, oh, well, let me give you an anecdote from High School South. Would you mind sharing that with us?
I would love to. So this is actually Matt Triolo's story. He's the principal who oversaw this initiative itself, and he was collecting data and had a meeting to wrap up our teacher data of teachers who implemented it this year. And he was looking at the data of the teachers' enrollments of their classes, how many discipline referrals that they had. And there was a teacher that he was working with closely on just overall community within the classroom. And at the end of the year, he was pretty excited as I was as well, that the teacher's discipline referrals went down, his relationships with students went up. And when we looked at the tallies of course recommendations at high school for next school year, the teacher's recommendations for kids that want to take his level 2 were the highest they were in the 5 years I have done scheduling. So I could say that's a testament to that teacher truly bought in, worked alongside of administration. Matt was trained, he led the initiative, and it really made a difference in this teacher's. So it was proof in
Yeah.
the action of the project.
A data point that we hadn't really thought of it, right? That generally in 5 years, the enrollment in that next level of class was low, and because of this, because students really felt like they belonged in that classroom now and had a good relationship, they wanted to continue that work.
And he attributed it to, I think that's important to state, it was the variable why we kind of correlated the data was that he felt that there was a good sense of community and he connected with his kids more, so.
Great. So we are finishing our formal data collection. We meet next week, and so we'll have some of the Smart Pass data and the discipline data. The climate survey data, we decided to not collect because we made our plan before Dr. Vitale got here, and she was putting into place her climate survey, and we didn't want to have kids surveyed to death, right? And some of the things that she was asking about for the district were some of our same things. And so what we did have, two more pieces of data that are on the sheet that I gave you. Another thing that we put into place as a support for teachers is 6 after school coaching sessions where I stayed after school, and for an hour, if you wanted to come after school, we couldn't pay them, but if you wanted to come, share your experience, let's talk about it. When I did this, these circles were really helpful to me. I would try stuff and it wouldn't work, and I'd come back and I'd say, what did I do wrong? And my peers could say to me, well, maybe you could, look at it this way. And it's really helpful for them because they get that immediate feedback. It so happened that those days, first of all, it's hard after school in the spring. Mr. Goldstrand, your wife can attest to this because I went to that library. It was in the library, and we hardly got any people doing it. They were the most beautiful days of all of the days after all of that rain. It seemed like on restorative practice day, the sun came out, and I was thinking to myself, well, if I were a teacher, I wouldn't want to be here either. I would want to be out. So clearly that didn't work for the teachers, right? That was the support we thought we could give them. Whatever the way that we did it didn't work, and that's data that doesn't look so great. So we'll take that and say, okay, there's another way that we'll need to do that, whether it's coffee chats like we do for the Alliance, whether it's during their prep, whatever that is, we'll have to regroup on that one. And then the bottom piece, really, I took 2 pieces of data from Dr. Vitale's survey. And so let me explain what this is. The top line is students responding to the statement, I am treated with respect by other students. And in the high schools, there's an asterisk there, and I'll tell you in a minute. In the high schools, that it was the number 2 issue that they identified as the most concerning. In their intermediate, it was the number 2 issue. And in the elementary, it was the number 1 or 2 issue that students responded was the most concerning, is that I am not treated with respect by students, is basically what they were saying. The asterisk is high school South, not even close. They were at 70%. They are an outlier that doesn't reflect it, which is nice to see. But the second one is teachers responding to the statement, students treat each other with respect across the board, high, intermediate, elementary. That is the number 1 thing the teachers say is not happening in terms of the questions that were on the survey, the climate survey that Dr. Vitale get. So I think, again, it's data that says this is still needed. Obviously, we started with some teachers this year. Its power is when everybody does it and everybody knows. And so we clearly still have some work cut out for us in the next 3 to 4 years. In phase 3, part of our goal this year was to say, how are we going to roll this out in the next 3 to 4 years? We will have new leadership for the district team. That is a goal. Obviously, I'll be retiring. And so we have a meeting again next week, and hopefully some people will step up. We have some really good candidates, so I think we'll be in good hands. Number two, we want to obviously include our elementary school counterparts and any new teachers that come on board, and then start to get the non-volunteers as we go forth in this second and third year. Third, we want to be sure we have the training of trainers. That is to happen this summer. Again, thank you, Ms. Jones. She secured a grant for us that will cover the cost of the training of trainers. And as you heard, 18 people total expressed interest. I don't think we can take all 18. And it is very important. Then the committee knows that this is my feeling. It is really important that at least 2 of those trainers be teachers, not administrators. Teachers listen best and most to other peers who are implementing things in their classroom. That's just the way it is. And so my strong recommendation is no matter what we do, that we have at least 2 trainers that are teachers. They can be with other administrators. We can send administrators to train, no issue with that. But I've learned that for it to really work, people who had experience with it in the classroom make the best trainers. And then finally, implementation of the phase 3 chart. The phase 3 chart, there's a key there below for you. I talked about cohort 1, 2, training of trainers, North campuses, South campuses. I'll put it up. It is very difficult to see, which is why you have a copy in front of you, or we gave you one ahead of time. This includes an ambitious program of training with at least 2 trainers and still myself. I believe that even if we do have trainers go in and do this training in the summer to become trainers, they are going to need some support as they roll it out. I needed that as I first started my training. And so I my recommendation is that we have some support for our trainers as they roll this out. They are still classroom teachers, so I also didn't want to overburden them, right? If you look at it, you're saying, well, how come they're only doing 3 or 4 trainings? Well, because they're also teachers. They have a full-time job to do things with students. This includes some coaching for the trainers and some continued coaching for the district leadership teams. So if the committee, given that this is where the committee thinks we should head, if we would do that, then what are the potential costs to the district? Training of trainers, the grant has already been obtained. There would be a cost for the exponential scaling of 2-day trainings. We would need to compensate our teachers in some way for doing those presentations, or we could. We would need support for our new staff trainers and continued guidance for our leadership teams, especially because we'll be implementing then 6 leadership teams at the elementary school, or at least merging it with an existing team, right, whose interests coincide, and then compensation for the new staff trainers. So that's kind of an overview of the work that we did this year.
We do have from D&H Solutions a package, 3 different packages that we can consider. Package A includes 7 2-day fundamentals of restorative practices training, 10 1-hour coaching and planning meetings in person, 3 1-hour coaching planning meetings online, and 6 hours of content creation for the cost of $20,636. We have package B, which includes 4 2-day fundamentals training, 6 1-hour coaching in person, 3 1-hour coaching online, and 6 hours of content creation for the cost of $12,138. And package C would have 2 2-day trainings and 4 1-hour coaching planning meetings in person for the cost of $5,768.
So I would say, Dr. Pepperado, first of all, thank you for leading this charge. We appreciate it. Thank you for your time and energy. You did a really, really nice job of explaining what it is. I'm gonna say what it's not. Because I think sometimes
you.
we get confused with
Yes.
it. It is not a replacement for discipline. It is not a replacement for consequence. We are still holding our children accountable. But however, when they come back to us, it's how we repair that so that they do not have another infraction of the same kind. So it is not at all usurping our code of conduct. It is not ignoring our code of conduct. It is what we're doing when they come back to help them and support them to grow and learn from their behavior. The intent of a consequence is to mold and shape behavior. Shay will tell you that all day. Out of school suspensions is
It's also
why.
it's also to keep them out of this behavior. That's the main thing.
Correct. But it's to mold and shape. So if you look at behavior modification, consequences are intended to mold and shape and change behavior. Out of school suspension doesn't. It just doesn't. Punitive consequences don't. If punitive consequences worked, we wouldn't continually need to build more jails. Like, that's just the reality of, and this is all completely philosophical. However, we still need to hold them accountable and have that punitive because we still need to create a safe environment for the whole. So sometimes we discipline the one for the greater good of the whole, but that one still needs our attention. And that's where restorative practices comes in. Because when that one student comes back after breaking the code of conduct, being disrespectful to staff, there's a lot of emotions and feelings in that. And it's how do we move past it so we can have a better community in our schools? So it is not only a reactive approach when there's an infraction, but it's also about building community. And today was the example
Yes.
of building community. And I think that's kind of like, if we could redo a mantra, that would be not creating the future. I want building the community of what we're trying to do kind of under our leadership team. So I think the recommendation, Andy, that you had said was that package
Package
B for about 12,000. And it's baked into the budget already. It's partly in the PCCD grant for mental health and support. It really aligns with the work Shay is doing. And people who don't know of restorative practices will tell you it's in lieu of discipline. It is not. Anybody who's gone through it will tell you,
Yes,
it's so much different than what I anticipated.
we still have the code of conduct.
Are you one of those? Or are you?
Am I allowed to make a comment now, or is it?
You are welcome to make a
I
comment.
didn't know whose turn was next. So first of all, I'm so happy to be sitting by my partner in this journey, and we're getting to this amazing point in this opportunity because she's advocated, as she said. But one fun fact I wanted to share with you, as one of the folks in the AI training with Magic School, one day this week, they're all a blur. I was excited to see one of the tools on there is restorative practice.
I love it.
AI prompts where you can put in a grade level, a scenario of the thing that happened, and it will pump out for you in that moment, the pointed questions that align with restorative practices to ask if you need that help.
Just another layer of support.
Yeah,
I love
it was
it.
right there.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Brown.
Yeah.
Do just teachers go through restorative practice, or is there like some sort of, I guess, continuing education that support staff can go to just to understand what restorative practice is?
So our goal would be that every employee in the district has restorative practices.
Okay.
There's a heavy price tag to that.
Yeah.
And we do want Dr. Pepperado to enjoy part of her retirement. But ultimately, it would be even to get this message out to everybody, to just understand what it is. And not necessarily to do circles on the school bus.
Right.
Literally and figuratively, I guess I should say. But to understand what it means, and that building community is really, that's the proactive approach to student discipline and managing behavior.
And that's my point. I think we can take away that notion that you had where restorative practice is replacing discipline if we educate everybody on what it is.
Yes.
Because we're making the assumption that people know what it is that aren't teachers going through it. And if we make that assumption, parents are going to assume, teachers, support staff's going to assume they're just going to restorative practice, sit in a circle and say kumbaya. And it's not what it really is. So they don't have to be trained on it, but maybe even a day of what is restorative practices and how is it going to benefit my school community?
Mhm.
I don't need to know how to do it, but I need to know how this process is benefiting my community that I work in.
Absolutely.
That's a great point. And again, the big misconception, right, is, and because it has been used, especially in the justice system, incorrectly.
Correct.
And so the misconception is, oh, it's light on crime, right?
Mhm.
Like we don't actually do the consequences. No, the student code of conduct is still there. What restorative says is high support with high control. My expectations aren't changing. You knew them, right? This is still, I'm gonna help you get through it,
Right.
but I'm still gonna hold you to the standard that was set.
Right. Well, because you both know, since you know too, since when I got on the board, I always said that a kid behaves a certain way, but if we don't get to the root of the cause, that behavior is going to continue. And I think personally, that's what restorative practice is understanding my behaviors as a student, understanding my reaction as a teacher, and how can we come together to understand the whys behind it.
I think another misconception, just to be brief, is that teachers think, oh, I'm gonna be a counselor now. No. We're still social studies teachers and we love our content and that's what we're gonna teach. But in the context of, and circles can be academic, right? It's forming that academic community that says your voice matters here, we all matter here, and this is how we act and behave when we're in this kind of environment. You can make it social emotional, but you can make it academic.
And some of you are social studies teachers.
Oh, sorry.
We just happen to be outnumbered.
That's right.
But there are a bunch at the table.
We do have a lot.
In your packet, the last thing I wanted to point out is that I didn't give you all the data that started this committee, but I wrote an article for the PA Administrator magazine. It's a peer-reviewed statewide magazine. And the article is in there that contains our data from Eastburg. So instead of putting it in the presentation, I just gave that to you.
Very
Thank
cool.
Yep.
Thanks so much.
So I just gotta process everything. So when we talk about restorative practices, and you know, one of the important things is that when they come back, you have the one-on-one restorative process to understand and try to cope with and deal with the situation that occurred. And then I was reading in here about doing circles inside of the classroom. Now, the thing is, do you see a way in which we can create restorative practices for educators that become a part of their teaching methodology, as opposed to, hey guys, because once you start doing that, then the kids, when you do it in a way that they don't realize
Yes.
that it is occurring, and it becomes part of, and it becomes second nature to them, it kind of instills in them more, as opposed to, okay, here we go, we're going in a circle, and then I gotta make sure I say this or do that. Do you see a way that we can, and this doesn't work for everybody, you know, sitting in service doesn't work for everybody. You have to find, you know, your own specific way, but do you see that as something that can be moved to at some point where, not saying there's anything wrong with circles, I'm not saying that, you know, doing that in the classroom and, you know, creating that,
squares.
I do, great ones. But there's definitely said to be something, you know, the safety inside the classroom environment, that they know that they can speak and do what they want. But is there a way, do you think, that we can, once we create that, then we move to the next phase where those educators just, it becomes part of?
If I can,
Please.
do you mind? And I don't want to step on you.
No.
Even when we talk about SEL, I am not a proponent of canned programs, and things taught in isolation. When you look at SEL restorative practices, it becomes part of what you do. Every teacher is an SEL teacher. Every teacher, when you do group work, you're talking about how to be an active listener, how to respond appropriately. Well, that's social emotional learning. And maybe we more explicitly do it. And my fear is that when we do these things, SEL, restorative practices, teachers are like, it's one more thing, I don't have it. And then kids roll their eyes, here we go in a circle
They
again.
realize they're doing.
Correct, absolutely. But if we can really make it a part of our fiber,
Mhm.
people realize, oh, well, I'm already doing this naturally, or it's a good investment of time. Because the next time we have a debate and two kids escalate in the classroom and maybe are offensive, right? Social studies teachers, and they're offensive about somebody else's beliefs, they'll think about it and you'll do less management of the behavior
Right.
and more content-driven conversations.
100%.
Yeah.
And in my perfect world, I'd approach Brooke Langan at ESU and say, and I have, this belongs in this is pedagogy, right? This belongs in classroom management. This is foundational, that it just merges with what we know already works for you.
Absolutely. Yes.
And again, I mean, it's, there are so many phases, like you said, to get to, and getting through that hurdle, that preconceived notion that it is this, and it's not.
Right.
So,
But it's really starting to gain momentum.
Yes.
all right,
It shouldn't say core curriculum, it should say course curriculum first.
yours says court.
Yeah, it's
saw
not,
that
it's
too.
really
I was
course.
like,
It says course.
Online it says court curriculum.
Then again, I also thought that said chart wheel, so.
So there you go.
So, I'm gonna go with course
And you know
curriculum
what's funny?
first
Mine
look.
says
He
court.
had two pair of glasses.
And I wore neither when I read it, right?
He took his second pair out, I'm like, what's different?
That's how you can see my screen
So I
over
can see
there.
that. Let's look at course curriculum first, look for mathematics 9 through 12. Course curriculum.
Thank you. And we did not ask the math teachers 9 to 12 back. These are the leveled classes. So you have already seen and approved the CP curricula for these classes. These are for applied and honors, so that we are addressing each specific level with the curriculum. So there really isn't an in-depth presentation to go with them. Dr. Pipperato did a really good job working with the teachers and gaining that understanding of what goes into an honors math class versus what is into an applied class, all while living within the confines of what that math is.
Any questions on, I know we read through them.
No, I'm glad we separated them out a
Yeah.
lot like that for me, because
Appreciate it.
that helped me
Mhm.
to see them all separately.
Sure, thank you.
We'll move on through to B, 6 through 8 science curriculum.
See, Mr. Papulas. Dun, dun, dun.
Feels like no.
Since an hour.
Hour and 15.
Right. You ladies, you're stuck, sorry.
Do this.
Look at that. It worked.
Now you done.
Did I? Oh, sorry.
A little bit to the
Oh,
slideshow.
There you go.
I know, it was tricky, right?
Yeah. All right, so with the 6 to 8 middle school science curriculum, we're gonna be using the activate learning and the open science. So to start off this year, we started off status quo. We're working on just essentially using the same scenario, same science. Some teachers started to use open sci-ed through the school year to at least, dip their toes in the water and try to figure out how to do this, because it's going to be a massive change for science. Andy and I were talking yesterday, and basically we're all gonna be first year science teachers next year.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I know, it's super exciting.
Yeah,
So-
so excited.
A lot of built up anxiety there, but it'll be all right. When we were looking at Open Science, it was a free program, but it's a beast of a program. So when you're looking and trying to figure things out, there's stuff all over the place. And being science teachers, we tend to like to have things like nice and
Very
well
analytical.
ordered, nice and organized, and that thing's all over the place. So the proposal was made for Activate, more manageable. Not only was it more manageable because it's going to have the things that we need, taking those units. It also had materials which we could get, and you guys approved that for us, which we really appreciate. We did see that most of the things were in a cycling pattern where we weren't content based. So what the teachers did was we broke the units into those content based units, each grade level, as to what the teachers were already teaching. And the flow actually makes a lot of sense when we put it all together, and I don't see there being many issues with that. When I started to look at things, the only ones that might have some issues would be 8th grade teachers, because their topics were kind of spread more throughout spiral. But I feel the 8th grade teachers have a real grasp on their stuff and are gonna be able to fill those roles whenever they're my president. For the curriculum team, what we did was we met to determine what standards were going to be covered from the various phenomenon within Activate. Activate, however, has all of their standards as next generation science standards. So what we did was we linked the next generation science standards to the STEEL standard. STEEL standards and next generation science standards are almost exactly the same, with a little variation of a word here or there, but they're almost identical for the most part, with the exception of your engineering and your sustainability systems. As a team, we then, once we got all of the information together, we made objectives to cover the major standards. And then we made it pretty broad for each grade level to sort of envelope everything underneath those broad objectives. So it makes more sense if you were a first-time teacher coming in, looking at things, you have your broad objective, then you got your standard. That's essentially what I mentioned up here in these two slides, 1, 2, and 3. For the engineering and sustainability standards, what we did there was we fit them into the units that we could best fit them into. We did cover engineering and sustainability in each unit that we made up. So it's kind of repetitive with each unit, but that's because those engineering things that we're going to be using are going to tie a lot back to what we're talking about in each section anyway. So I want them to be there for each new incoming new teacher, so they can see that in the curriculum that's embedded itself. Some of the units were a little more lengthy, primarily because of the sustainability standards. We had to find a way to fit those in. And for the most part, we did a really good job of getting those in. Although they don't 100% always link up with Activate, I feel like our teachers also have ways to sort of work in new things with not only gizmos, but activities we're already doing. Like I do throughout the classroom, and a big sustainability thing is about, Pennsylvania's aquatic life and the ability to have that be a sustainable resource. So those things can tie in directly. Some problems that we did find when we were writing this was that originally we were trying to tie it to eligible content. And you will see when you look at the curriculum that we can't. The reason that we can't is because eligible content from last time it was written science was in 2007. So it's not going to even really pertain to the PSA that we're taking or coming up with these two management. So until new eligible content comes out, we really have that lack of that link but it's only because we don't really have viable element at the time. The most recent thing I could find was something from 2017. When I opened it thinking it was gonna be science and ended up being ELA. So I got stuck there. So we just decided, you know, we can add that once we get those new ones in and tie it into the eligible contents we have tested. Once those objectives and the standards were placed in, we also made sure that we had it relating back to that unspiraling, the unpacking of those units, and that we meant every standard, we had every standard in there, so we're pretty much set there. The only thing I did want to mention is with the engineering standards, there are some that don't fit directly with the science, and it might be something where the social studies or tech ed department is gonna have to sort of fill in those standards and use them and teach them, because there's no way for us to sort of fit it into what we're doing with the national class. Are there any questions?
I would just like to say, Nate, this was the first curriculum project that I got involved with when I started here. And I really appreciate the way your team worked on this and the collaborative nature. And I'm really looking forward to the course plans coming out and working with you guys some more just to really get this wrapped up. So thank you very much.
Yeah, we're looking forward to doing those courses. We had a lot of ideas. We're gonna try to make a nice, solid. That's the hope. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was complaining about having those rooms.
Right. Perspective. You're
Yes.
welcome. You provided some perspective.
Yes. Let's move on to elementary science, K-5.
Well, Nate did a lot of explanation that kind of carries down to elementary, so thank you to Nate for that. But just give you a little background on how we got to where we are with the writing piece. The Elementary Science Committee spent the past year collaborating with the secondary team in the summer to have that K-12 conversation and perspective and just talk it through how we were going to map this work out. They participated in the community resource fair where the district organized many of our local Delaware Water Gap, all some of the organizations in our own backyard came in to kind of talk about how we could use them as a resource for this work, which was wonderful. They learned through our partnership with Penn State professor and author, Dr. Carla Zembelsall, who worked with us. Her book was given to us at the IU when we as leaders went down there to learn about steels last summer. And when I noticed in the back, she was kind of in our backyard, I reached out and she agreed to come basically gratis and work with our teams. She only asked us, you approved a contract to cover her expenses, but that was it. Very well received, very knowledgeable and working with pre-service teachers. Then the committee, because they appreciated these opportunities and that did assist them in building their planned instruction guides, which you have this evening. And that will help them with their course plans, which as Andy could tell you, they're already excited to get started next week to build those as well. This is kind of a little bit about the product too. When I also share with you that those experiences combined helped them in selecting a resource that they felt really met the needs of what we were working to accomplish. They looked at some materials at the end of last summer before they had many of those experiences, and then we revisited those materials again in the spring with a very different set of lenses. You know, once they had a better understanding of what this felt like, what it looked like. So that was an awesome learning journey. And then, you know, special thanks to that committee for getting this work done, selecting a resource which will come later on the agenda, and I can answer questions about that now or when we get to it, not a problem. And also I asked our instructional coaches to go on this journey with us, and as you know, they're math and ELA, but we don't have a science coach, and I'm not here to ask for one. But I said to them, you're embedded in these topics, and we really need your help. We're picking up a little bit of lost ground. And they graciously joined us at every training, helped lead many of those experiences, and or the curriculum writing. And when we needed some edits to occur, they buckled down and helped us with that too. So it was really just a community effort, from the science committee of the chairs and their +2s, as well as our instructional coaches. So I just appreciated the all hands on deck and partnership with everybody to get to where we are tonight.
So if I can just, because I can't just let something go without using words. So the Steele standard just turns science instruction upside down. And it's a completely different way to approach science and the teaching of. And this was something that the Department of Education has done a very slow rollout of. They told you it was happening, but then they gave you little bits of information. And our science teachers, the leaders of departments and the grade level chairs have just done a masterful job of constantly pivoting. Sometimes because of PDE, sometimes because of internal controls that should not have made us pivot. But just know we're grateful for it. Heather and Tabitha, thank you for your leadership in this. It was a heavy lift to get over the finish line. The Friday before Andy started, I called him and I was like, this has to be fixed like now. So Andy, thank you for kind of coming in, trying to figure out what that even meant of fixing it. But thank you truly to your leadership from our teachers all the way up to central admin. So just know we're appreciative of this work and super excited to see what Steele's looks like in the classroom on a day-to-day basis.
I think one of the best takeaways if I could share with you, when Dr. Zembelsaw came and she immersed our K-2 and then our 3 to 5 chairs in, and +1s or 2s, I can't remember at this point, in a lesson. One of the takeaways was one of the teachers said at the end, oh, I don't have to do an experiment every day. It's, because it felt like that in the beginning, like, oh my gosh, we're going to be buying baking soda and vinegar to the cows come home and making a million volcanoes, right? But no, it's just that deeper dive in and having kids ask a lot of questions and organizing those questions and using them to guide us to get to that end result. So I think that was important because I think we all kind of went into it thinking that like we're going to be buying lots of baking soda, but it's more than that. So thank you, Maggie, for your kind words. I'm done speaking.
You took everything I was going to say.
Sorry.
Like, no, in all seriousness, that absolutely, it's a tremendous amount of effort that goes into any curriculum, never mind rewriting a brand new curriculum that's not even spelled out for you what is necessary. So
I'm excited just to see more of this in science curriculum, having children that went into the STEM field.
Oh, yes.
Like, I wish they had more of this when they were going through it. It's going to really change the trajectory of our students going into those fields and giving them a skill set that they don't have. Like, it's interesting because my son reached out to me. He's like, Mom, tell the school to use this for their CAD programs. Don't use this. And he sent me text messages. So I shared that with the people designing the engineering curriculum in the high school. He's like, this is what the colleges are using. They're not using this anymore. That's the old version. So it's nice to see that we're kind of going into that 21st century and leading our kids to where they need to be to get into these fields.
And with regard to all the curriculum, I'm really excited to see that everything is being brought up to date, which is, as we know, some are almost as old as me. Yeah, they're older.
So
All
it's
right,
like 22 years old.
that's it.
That's it.
They're ancient, just like you.
Course curriculum second look world culture or world cultures. Thank you. You got me saying this now. World languages.
Thank you.
Okay.
This is the second look, and we would like the world language curriculum to move to the board in full for full approval. And our world language teachers have been working diligently to get their course plans ready, and they've shared the first set of the German plans, and they did an outstanding job of putting those together.
And a reminder that all of the world language proposed texts are in our office.
Mhm.
So if you wanted to see any of those, again, they're all there for review.
I'm glad to see we have new text for world language, because I remember looking at the dates when my kids took it. I was like, "Ooh, those are old books."
Right?
And I just appreciate the amount of effort that, you know, our district in particular takes into vetting resources and then purchasing them. And then not just purchasing them and then using them. I messed up there. Elementary science resources.
Oh, we skipped one.
Oh, I did. I
Plans
apologize. It's
for-
math. I
for-
apologize. Course plans approval by the Office of Curriculum and Instruction, Intermediate School Math, grade 6, 7,
We're
8.
just excited about this because again, this is the first, right? With this is the
Mhm.
first time from 6 to 12 that we have course plans on here. So our intermediate school math, grade 6, 7, 8, did a good job of working together and putting them. We went back, you know, it is a little bit of building the plane while we're flying it because as we get it, we think this is what we want, and then they gave it to us, and we're like, oh, you know what would make this even better? Is if we did this, and so they were troopers in hearing all of our revisions and then updating it. So we're just super excited that that's also our first course plan is to get across the finish line.
Elementary science resource. I think it's gonna be.
So just,
You're good.
yep, we looked at about 6 resources. I will be honest with you, the Activate product was our like kind of dream to go K to 8 with that. However, Open Syed and all of the moving parts that go with those resources being developed, we would have had to commit to a product that hasn't in stages this year and next year that haven't been seen by our staff. They're in development now because of Steels and Pennsylvania. So as much as I wanted to hold out and do that, we said we would commit to a 3-year subscription, knowing contract, knowing that there'll be more players in the game in 3 years.
Mhm.
And we didn't want to limit our options. So that's
Makes
why we
sense.
settled on about the 3.
That makes sense.
Thank you. Elementary reading resource, the 95% group.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you for sticking with
Yes.
us.
Yes,
Yeah, sure.
on all days of this one.
See, you know that language.
Andy, you're gonna,
Contact sense, let's see.
Oh, that's-
I think she had.
I want to hear that out.
You want 95? Yep. Okay.
unless you're logged in, Mary.
Hold on one.
Were you planning to join? That's what I thought.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know me, I'm Jackie Doyle. I'm one of the reading specialists at Brassica Elementary School. And I'm also the elementary reading department chair. And elementary reading has been with the MTSS department throughout the year. We've been meeting multiple times throughout the year to talk about issues with both of our departments, things that we're looking for to move forward, and resources that are missing. Like we have holes in the things that we would like to do as far as reading support and MTSS interventions. So we were coming up with materials that would fill those gaps and holes for the kids that we service in school. So we work closely with the 95% group. We have many of their products already for comprehension. We have chip kits that are phonics instruction. And these are some pieces that as a group collectively, the 18 of us professionals and our paraprofessionals have looked at through this past year to say these are things that we feel would fill the gaps that we have within our services to our students. So the first one that we're presenting here is the short vowel series. And this is to build a strong phonics foundation through explicit short vowel instruction. The key features for this is it is systematic and it's a sequential phonics instruction. So it follows that letter naming and letter sounds through CVC, digraphs, blends, short
long vowel silent E, and it continues on through that phonics curriculum. This being the piece, we have pieces that address alphabetic principle, and learning letter names and sounds. And we have things for chip kids that delve into this, and you can see the chips on there, so they're using manipulatives, they're using multimodalities to go through some things. And this is one that we needed a resource that would be systematic, and people have used this in our building already. We have some of this, but we're asking for the component, the whole package of it. So it's also, it focuses just on the short vowels, which we have a lot of need for that, and it includes scripted instruction and decodable word lists. So it's like the big package for what we need. It improves coding accuracy for students, will help us to do that, and reinforces the vowel sound recognition and application. So we have presented to purchase the digital presentation so we can use our my thought here, the projectors, that's it, the projectors. To do that, we have student workbooks to go along with it, and then there's a teacher package that is encompassed within that as well. That's something that the kids really like to do this. We had additional those chip kits from 95% that we can use in conjunction with this as well. And it comes with cards, lesson plan, and the kids seem to like it. The kids that I've used it with before have enjoyed and are engaged in their learning. And we have a special ed teacher who did COVID this past year, and her students had nice results on that too. So we're asking to have this across the 6 elementary buildings to provide instruction with short vowels, more explicit lead program just on vowels.
Before I continue, I'm Mary Polish. I'm the NCFS specialist at ESASD, and I'm also the chairperson for NCFS. On slide 2, as you can see, this key, I'm going to give you some background actually first. So we have the K-1 and 1 decodable readers already, and our plan is to expand upon this. And see when I have my readers on to expand upon this as money allows us to, and you will approve of that. So this encompasses 6 books that we are in this 95% readables. There's 6 books, and for each of them, there's 36 books in total. And this is for grade 2 that we're looking for. And we're also looking for our 4 to 5 students to feel like they're not reading, if you will, something that's a babyish, something more that they can relate to and enjoy reading and get the reading comprehension and strategy that they also need. And it will along with targeted body skills. So some key features of this, it's aligned with our decodable readers, it's aligned with the 95% of our program, fiction and nonfiction passages. Emphasis on decoding skills, and some benefits are it supports fluency, comprehension, and reinforces phonics in some engaging contexts, which is very important.
And we found with this that some of the 4th and 5th grade students that we have get stuck at these lower phonics skills because they don't have, I don't want to say the capacity, but it's not sticking with them. And the materials that we have for these lower phonics skills do present as being very immature to a 4th and 5th grader. And they don't want to have this book out because, well, I don't want my friends to see I have, this book that looks like a baby book, in their head. So these are they present more like a chapter book with the 6 stories each book. And as a team, we're trying to find solutions for those students who are upper level elementary students, but giving them materials that are on their level. Because even in our HMH reading series, the level readers that are in that series are too hard for them to read. So it gives the presentation of a chapter book something that's a little more grown up per se, and giving them that confidence and that material that they can read, but it doesn't look like they're reading something from first grade as a coordinated. And then, if you wanna go to the next slide, this is a big concern, that we talk about a lot at our reading meetings, having this phonological awareness piece. We see that kindergarten kids are coming in with less and less skills, right? They're not going to preschool, if their parents aren't spending time with them. I mean, nursery rhymes were like our staple when we were young, and we don't see that. I mean, your kids are like, what is this you're showing me? Like, hickory dickory dock, they just don't have exposure to that anymore. So we're finding that this phonological awareness piece is something that's really missing. We have Heggerty, which is great. Teachers rave about it, they love it, the kids are making progress with it. It's to the point where our Super Kids curriculum is coming in with a new phonological awareness piece, which is wonderful. We don't know what that encompasses completely yet, so we're giving like a little reprieve to Heggerty for now, because we want to see what's going to be coming up in this new curriculum that Xander Bloser has developed with Super Kids. We're still using Heggerty. The teachers, Dr. Bradley gave them the option of taking back their Heggerty manuals to see what was going to be in here, and it's pretty much like a knockdown pull-out fight because they love this material so much. So they're going to keep Heggerty, but the issue here with reading support and MTSS is that there are no ancillary materials that go with that. So if we're doing Heggerty with the students who are not succeeding in this in the classroom, we're just repeating the same exact lesson, which is fine. And they need that, those younger students need that repetition, but it's exactly the same material. So through 95%, they have materials, they call it the pair, and they have this pocket PA, which is a core item, and then the pair is the intervention piece. It's the phonological awareness intervention course. So this is kind of on the go. So in our discussion with Jill from 95%, the pocket PA would be more like something that the reading specialist would do with a tier 3 student using those materials, and then our paraprofessionals would use that pair to reinforce instruction. So the key benefits for these, it supports early literacy, and it's ideal for warm up or small group. So it's gauged, all the materials are gauged for a group of 6 or less. It's portable, it's spiral bound, it covers all of the things that we need it to cover in phonological awareness, and phonemic awareness, like rhyming, blending, segmenting, manipulating sounds, and it follows research-based phonological awareness continuum. So this is something that we have been looking for to make our instruction a little more, I don't know what I'm gonna say there. Have our instruction a little more geared towards what our students need, not using the same resources that they're using in the classroom. The pocket PA focuses on like 2 skills a day, where Heggerty would focus on 5 within the classroom. So it's a little breaking down of it a little bit more, and not overwhelming them, because some kids just focus on that one part in Heggerty because that's all they can really do at that point in time. Where this we can kind of hone in onto each day and have hopefully have our students make success.
Oh, on the next slide, there. We're looking for that, like you said, that tier 3 intervention where it doesn't so much overlap with what we already have in our Super Kids or HMH, and it's more to, build upon other things that we already have, but we need to, like myself, for MTSS, it's different. And I feel like we're always grabbing for the same resource as each other, and then our kids are going from like reading to MTSS, and we're like, but we've already used that with them, so we're trying to do something different with that. Well, I know like there's some materials with super kids, they have the classroom workbook and they have a foundational skills workbook, so I use that 1 year. The foundation skills, and the kids look at me and go, I did this. And I'm like, no, you didn't, you did not do this, it's completely different. They did do it, it's pretty much the same workbook. So we wanna just make sure we're not having that, kids, I did this already, so they tune out. We want them to have something fresh and something new and something that's appropriate for where they are developmentally, so.
So phonetic awareness is that building block and it aligns with the phonics of reading. I know that Jackie already talked about Haggerty, but we already have the Haggerty in place and in K1, and it will look a little different for K. Next year because it's already built into the super kids, but when you continue the Haggerty with first grade, in this upcoming school year. Super Kids is very heavy in the phonics, in kindergarten and first grade has those targeted and routine skills that parallels to the activity. And we already talked about that tier 3 coming together and having that be readily available for us to use with those kids who are really struggling in our schools. And to dive down into those areas. I think that's really important.
So that's our presentation.
Thank you.
You're welcome, are there any questions?
I just, real quick, I just want to double check, 'cause I think I heard you say in the beginning, there was a digital component of the beginning portion of the program of software. Okay, awesome.
Yeah, so there's digital pieces to both the phonemic awareness piece and the short vowel piece, and it's just showing manipulatives on the board so the kids can see it a little bit
That's awesome. Okay.
clearer, and then, model some things. So that
And different ways that they can learn it.
And then having chips.
Perfect.
But it's not like an independent pathway.
No.
No.
Yeah, it's an instructional.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, we do.
Yeah, perfect.
It sounds very interactive to me when you were describing
Yeah.
with the pieces and stuff.
And, the chips all mean a different color, like the red chips are short vowels, the blue chips are consonants, the orange chips are digraphs. I forget what color the blends are, and then the long vowels are like green. So that's as far as I usually get, so. I always do that or lilac, and
If you get there, they probably can be back in their
and
course.
if I'm lucky, I get to bounty, so.
I also like that the books aren't quote unquote baby like for like a third or fourth grader, because that's a huge MTSS thing with or a bully thing. Oh, you're stupid, you're reading that book. And I like that pulls away from that stigma that I need help, I'm going to reading support. But I have a big kid book now,
Yeah. They're starting with the second grade one because the way the phonics is broken up, there's basic skills, there's advanced skills, and then there's the multisyllabic skills within the phonics lesson libraries that we already have for that. So, each of these books moves through that continuum as well. So our goal would be to add like grade 3 next year. And then grade 4 the following year. So in a 4-year time span, we would have all of the levels to cover that to go up to the multisyllabic with some of the older kids too. So I think kids seem to enjoy the 95% products, and they're really teacher friendly, and it's kind of a no-brainer for the teacher part to use it. They give you all of the instructions right there, and it gives you a chance to take a close look at kids, because there's also markings on those little sound boxes with pencils and then moving chips in. So it's very interactive for the students, and they really do spend a lot of it.
So then I think that improves upon our obedience. Of course.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And for the purposes of the board, Dr. Bradley brought this idea to me earlier this year, and I spoke with Dr. Vitale about it. These are funds that are currently available in the 24-25 curricular budget that we would be able to use for the purposes of these materials.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I just want to thank ladies for their patience, because they wanted this but Dr. Tolino at the helm, right, and said, well, we need to make sure the new superintendent is seated. And then once we were fortunate enough to have Maggie, then oversight of our budget is Andy, right, and really digging into the why behind that. So it's been a long journey, longer than we would like, but I'm so grateful that we are here tonight for this. And just for those of you who don't know, 95% is a company that was founded by Susan Hall. And her son had reading difficulties, and so she started to design these materials. And she believed that 95% of the children in our classrooms can read at or above grade level, and she wanted to meet that goal. In the past year, she has sold her company, and it has grown exponentially. They use
Are really
very integrated, and they call it their ecosystem, and I like that because, as you heard, all of the pieces that we use are integrated and follow that continuum.
And we did forget to add to our presentation, and I apologize, that we do have some professional development included in that purchase order. To do some refresher courses for staff that has already been here, because I think it's been
Since I started.
It's been like 10 years since they came and did our initial chip kit and phonics lesson library in services for us as a department. So they're gonna come back and do refresher training for the people who have been here, staff that's been here, just to make sure we're current on their teachings and their practices. And then any staff that has been new, paraprofessionals and reading staff, because we have had pretty big turnover in that in the last 10 years, that they're gonna get that initial training. So they're familiar with those products without having to be self-taught or do a like train the trainer kind of thing. So we appreciate that as well. Because that's something we like to stay current, and we want to make sure we're doing things properly to help kids the best. So thank you for finding those funds and hopefully improving everything at the school board meetings. We really do appreciate that.
Thank you.
95% group is honestly the gold standard for early literacy instruction and intervention. So thank you. Thank you for making sure we kept on it and advocating for it, because they're good programs. And
Thank Dr. Bradley for listening to
Yeah,
us
she's
year after year. Had enough things to use for our smaller intervention.
And I just have to say, he's being here in the district for 21 years. I just finished year 30. After
Congratulations.
21 years, Dr. Bradley has come in and allotted us time to meet together as a team, as a reading team, as a reading and NTSS team as well. And we really enjoy getting together, because we don't, our department grade level meetings aren't a long enough time period to really discuss the things that we are looking at, the direction we want to move forward. So thank you, Dr. Bradley, for allowing us that time and making those things happen, because I think it's just been the last 3 or 4 years that we've been doing that, and it's been really a wonderful experience, and our paras really enjoy being included in that, and they say that very vocal, they're very vocal about that at our meetings. They want to be included and they want to know what's going on. So thank you again for allowing that to happen.
And our principals who made
Yeah,
the time.
making it happen. So yes.
Yeah.
Thanks. All right. Moving on to Schedule B, conversation.
So this isn't necessarily anything that we need the committee to act on or that we're asking for the board to act on. This is just kind of informational. And I know Andy had said, well, like, we've never brought Schedule B to EPR before. And I just want to make sure kind of you guys know what we're doing and what we're thinking. So 4 different areas that we're working on. One is professional development presenters. And one of our first meetings that we had for curriculum with Heather and Tabitha, it was the antiquated chart. I don't even know. It was over a decade old of when our professional staff offer presentations and conduct presentations, what is the compensation that we're offering them? And what does that look like on a school day, so a contractual day, versus if they're doing it in the summer? So we worked pretty closely with our union in developing a chart of what that would look like. We're going to create an MOU with it, then it will become embedded in the contract this year. So next time we negotiate the contract, any MOUs naturally should be embedded the next contract. So just know that we've kind of created a solid logical method of how we're going to pay people who are doing presentations, because they should get paid not only for their time, but also for the planning and preparation that goes into it. And kudos to the union of just making sure that we were respecting the people. And thank you, Heather and Tabitha. There were lots of numbers and charts and all of that. And I think we streamlined it. I think we're in a good place with it.
Yay. When I got here, there was nothing, and it was just as we went through saying, okay, that's a different one. How do we, and so we just put it down and said, somebody needs to figure
And
this
it
out.
was super inconsistent, which
Yeah.
is just not what we want
No,
with our
right.
people. Because whether it's right or wrong, people assign value to their compensation. And we don't want any inconsistency with that, because we don't want people to have indirect messages. So that's one. The scoreboard schedule the position. So we have these beautiful digital scoreboards. They're gorgeous, they're amazing, and they're just like a lot.
Yeah.
And so what we spoke to the union about was that the scoreboards, the content will be embedded into a course. However, when football season rolls around in August, no said course exists yet because nobody's in class. And when we want our players recognized,
Or soccer or.
it doesn't
field hockey,
exist.
yeah.
Right.
Correct. So what we're going to do this summer is we're going to offer this at kind of the hourly rate for two different people, one north, one south, to be content creators. So they're not the tech people, they're the content creator. Then we'll see how many hours it was. What does it look like? And then from there, we would create a schedule B based on those hours to see what that looks like, to make sure that our fall sports, when we start active competition, they're ready to go. And we're not waiting until October until the course is up and running and students understand how to create that content.
And we're gonna get the training from the manufacturer, right?
It's already happened.
They've already given it to us, good.
Yep.
So
It was actively being used today,
Yep.
that
I
scoreboard.
saw-
Yeah,
you
it was
noticed it,
neat.
yes.
Beautiful.
Beautiful out there.
And the sound system, when I spoke, was through the scoreboard.
Yeah.
I didn't realize.
Oh, yes.
No.
That's awesome.
And it wasn't even halfway. It was.
Nope.
So clear.
Yeah.
Which like doesn't even make sense to me, but whatever.
Right.
So
Wow.
will they have to be at every game, or they just
no,
create the
they're
contact?
just creating the content and then there will be tech people at the game.
So they'll create
Correct.
contact for a football game, a soccer game, a
Correct.
field hockey
Yep,
game.
all the
They'll,
different sports.
they'll just program it in, and whoever does the scoreboard will just push a button and it'll go.
Yes.
So my question is this, if we're going to create it as part of a class inside of the curriculum inside of a class, that individual who's teaching that, right, will say in the fall. And so that content will be then created for the spring season. Now, students who take that same course, not in the spring, would they have the ability to work with that Schedule B position individual over the summer
Correct.
to create the content? Basically, this summer, we're just looking at a specific individual to create the content
Right.
without student engagement.
Right. My goal would be that
It's
students are
student-
driving the content, running the boards.
And-
moving
But they would
forward.
have to come in
Correct.
this summer
Yeah.
to work with. that
Absolutely.
Schedule, okay. perfect.
Just, I mean, our students help run our sound system, like our
Okay.
students do all of that
Mhm.
now.
I just want to make sure that, I just don't want those spring kids to lose out
Agreed.
on, you know.
Yeah,
creating
Because we don't, they do you, but the spring kids do could use the scoreboard because there's track and field events happening.
But the fall kids would be creating that.
Not
content.
necessarily,
No.
'cause you don't have your team, right?
You don't have your team, you don't know who's doing what event yet, you don't know
That's
who's
true.
throwing discus, you don't know who's running
Right.
the 50-meter dash or anything
Correct.
like that,
Yep.
so.
What they would add in.
So those
I
kids,
just want to make sure the kids stay active.
I completely,
Yeah.
agree. Absolutely.
That's all.
And we want to keep it fresh, because somebody said, well, maybe you only do it once and then you don't need to do it again. No, I
oh,
want
no.
every
Change.
season, I wanted something different.
On
We
some-
made a huge investment in these.
Yeah.
boards.
So-
And it can lead to a new
Students,
set of,
you know.
lead to a new profession for these kids.
Correct.
Well,
Yeah,
It's a big deal.
that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, content creation for
Yeah.
things like this is a big deal.
Yes,
I mean, like, if you look at professional stadiums, there's a lot that goes into those boards.
Yes,
or even more.
Absolutely. And eventually what I would love is to get some in our gyms. We'll talk about that.
oh, I would love them in the gyms, when I go to basketball games in Lehigh Valley and they have them there, they're
They're
nice.
beautiful.
Yeah, definitely
Yeah.
don't want static.
No,
No, it's not what I want.
no, absolutely not.
I have the Phillies jingle in my head.
Do, 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 do. There you
Well,
go.
and the fall students, as we go later into the seasons, and if you're
Yeah.
thinking playoffs and things like that, they can be creating new content. And any milestone awards for number of goals or yards or touchdowns or whatever the context may be, they can make special splash screens for
Mhm.
those.
And the kids will love that type of thing. That's.
Right, and what's
that's-
happening so
they
much
can be
this summer, I'm working with Daxtronics about our marketing plan to start selling that space. So it could be companies, it could be the right price first down. So as we sell that space,
Mhm.
our students can help create that content as well.
Then even if on the homecoming game, like parents could do little sponsors
Yes.
for their kids that are
Yes.
running for homecoming queen or homecoming king, you know? You can do sponsorships, go with so-and-so, or a parent can buy an ad for their senior at the game, make a touchdown, whatever, you know?
Yep, absolutely. Dental hygiene, so we are creating a Schedule B, to track. It's going to be one Schedule B, it's gonna be $10,000, but we can break it either into 1, 2, or 3.
Okay.
Right, depending on how many people would like it, but they would track all of those mandated screenings. I think it's kindergarten, 3rd and 7th grade, that students need mandated screenings. In addition to having the mobile dentist and ensuring that we are teaching good dental hygiene, but that's going to be a Schedule B position that will help us just with the paperwork side of it, so that we're not leaving it on our nurses.
Are we still keeping the same dental hygienist? We got an email.
No.
No, and we had talked about that in executive session when we talked about personnel, that we.
Well, that's
were
what I
going-
thought.
Yeah,
That's
through
why I was asking the
attrition,
question.
yeah, and that person has resigned.
Okay.
Yep, absolutely. And then the last one is dual credit. So, we had brought to the board a few months ago at this point, asking for some expense to help us with dual credit, to pay for students' dual credit. Since then, Northampton Community College has been awarded a grant, which actually pays for some pathways of dual credit. So the cost is going to be much less. What Andy and Amy and Heather have worked on is connections with Lackawanna College and Northampton about growing our dual credit. With Northampton Community College, there's a little bit more parameters of who can teach a dual credit class. So to me, I am in 10th grade English, and this is an example, this isn't the perfect example. I'm in 10th grade English and I'm getting a high school credit. If I pay, I'm also getting a college credit for that same class. So it's dual credit, sitting and doing that work. Our teachers can do that through Lackawanna College. Through Northampton Community College, you have to have 18 credits in that content area at the master's level.
Okay.
Most of our teachers don't have in content because they don't do a master's in English.
Right.
They do a master's in secondary ed or in ESL or in reading.
Okay.
They do it in different areas, not necessarily their content, because they're already content specialists. What Northampton has agreed to do is say, okay, we'll open it up. If your teachers meet with our professor, department chair, on a regular cadence. So the teachers who are teaching some of these dual credit classes are going to have an expectation of meeting with the Northampton adjunct professor or the professor or department chair bi-weekly.
Okay.
And touching base. In addition to that, we also are going to use a different SIS, so student information system, to enter grades.
Right.
Because of that, the teachers are doing a little bit extra work.
Yeah.
It's not a lot, but it's a little bit extra. Part of the grant that Northampton included is compensation for the teachers for that. So we'd like to create a Schedule B position for dual credit, that when you have to do these meetings and when you have to enter, because you're gonna have to enter it into our student information system and then into their student information system, that there's duplicity there. We just want to recognize that we're asking a little bit more of them than their other colleagues. So we want to honor that with the Schedule B.
You'll get more people to do it.
And we get more people. Correct. Any questions about that? And again, that's not necessarily action items. I just want you to know kind of where
It's-
we are.
I have no questions on the Schedule B portion, but questions on the other portion, but we'll get it, that's another,
What other portion?
like, what level classes would be considered a dual credit? Like, does it have to be an honors, or does it have to be a college prep? Like what determines
So
what?
right now it's honors and AP level.
Okay, doesn't ask. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, for right now.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, that's all I have.
Thanks so much. Robotics funding.
Thank you. So robotics funding is something that we've been having discussions about. I know the robotics advisors had come to EPR and to the board in the past, and it is something that we really value. Specifically, each one of our elementary schools has a robotics club, as well as our intermediate schools. They held a district-wide competition for those kids. So robotics and those clubs and activities are something that we very much value. And again, like Dr. Vitale's section, we're not here asking for anything, but rather to address this co-curricular club. Dr. Vitale has a meeting set up with administrators on June 11th, where we will have a process to evaluate clubs, intramurals, and activities, what constitutes them, and what is going to be our thresholds to making sure that these clubs and activities are going to be a part of each of our schools. The reason that I put robotics on here is this is a club that I wanted to come out and formally endorse from the administration that we want each and every elementary school, as well as our intermediate schools, to have these programs, to have their advisors funded, and that is kind of our gold standard for at this meeting. These are the clubs that we want, and that will be funded through our building intramural and club budgets.
Have they come, either as a robotics club come to you for asking about a summer program?
Yes, yesterday.
Yesterday.
Oh, okay, so
And-
I talked to him at the,
Yeah, so
Uh,
yesterday I received an email
you did, okay,
about doing a summer camp,
good.
in a
Right,
few weeks.
That's why I asked him.
And I said, well, I love it, but our students have left.
Mm-hmm.
So how are we communicating that with them? And what planning and preparation has gone into it? And it also isn't included in our budget. So I love the energy, I love the idea. However, I said, can we put some time into planning it and do the
That's all.
robotics camp
That's what I.
next summer?
Good.
Because if we're gonna do it, I want to do it well, and I don't
We're gonna
want to
do it
rush and
right.
put it
We're gonna
together.
do it right.
And speaking to Mr. Lazowski, he completely understood.
I would love to see
Good,
it
okay,
over the
got
little
you.
spring break that we added this time, maybe, no one's going away,
Out of robotics. And he's, and I've been doing it since it started a long ago, and. Competitive, right? Yes. It is an amazing thing to watch from start to finish. The kids love it. I had the pleasure of going to the JTL one, my students, some of my students participated in that JTL one. And it's nice to see not only our elementary kids, but it's nice to see our elementary kids be middle school kids and still in that follow through. And to see that, we hope that they continue that and be able to become engineers or whatever, but it starts at a young age, and it's just amazing to see in action.
If you ever saw one of the competitions, they jump in with both feet and all.
Oh, they do. It's very competitive.
Super Bowl.
Yeah.
It was like the Super Bowl, that competition.
Yeah.
The kids were into it, parents were screaming and yelling and cheering, it was just wonderful.
Yep.
It was great.
And we do have a summer one, we do have one that's in place, that we send home letters for elementary kids. It's
We have-
middle.
Steamer, right?
No, not Steve,
No.
Steve, this is actually robotic.
This was middle school, intermediate level.
Now would this move us into, you're looking at the co-advisors for intermediate and high school, or which is like?
We have a gap in high school.
Right.
So in speaking to Mr. Lazowski yesterday, he has some ideas about how to grow it and what that can look like.
Right, because it falls off a cliff.
Because in eighth grade, it just stops, and it's kind of leveraging some of our people, because it sounds daunting, right? And unless I teach tech ed or science, but it's not.
No.
It really is,
hands-on.
any teacher, a reading specialist can learn it.
Weighted because we talk it up so much in elementary, like I pull in those fourth graders and those fifth
Yeah.
graders. And I get them to continue going and I want them to do it in sixth grade and they get shot down a little bit, because it's offered in a different. I'm not saying it's not offered, but it's offered in a different manner.
My son is a high school math teacher, not tech ed, and he does the robotics at Southern Lehigh, and he's given up all of his other activities, not that one. He'll never give that up.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
So as long as we can continue this.
Just making sure that we have a K-12 sustainable program.
It's inconsistent, I think, too, as you're saying, that kind of like goes the same path.
Like I have. And they could actually apply for that or, I don't know the word.
Auditioned or whatever.
Yeah, so it's different for them and some of them maybe don't make that and. It doesn't look the same, I think,
Or feel the same.
or feel the same, yeah, like you build that, go back to that community, like you really build that community around robotics.
Yeah, and when they go to middle school, it's 3 different schools, 4 different schools going into one, and they don't know anybody, and it's like
Right.
elementary school's a little safer.
That's a great way to get to know each other.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to public participation. Is there anyone online? No, I see 2 people. That's you.
One's Heather, and one's us.
Um,
I know Mr.
Anyone-
Mr.
anyone here
McCool
want
had
to
dropped
talk?
off.
Anything else you want to get off? Talk about? I do want to say before we move on to advisory recommendations that, you know, I know Anne often says, well, this is, her and Keith's little thing. Well, it's most important. It really is.
Mhm.
Listen, I have nothing. I'm on a bunch of other committees and I think education, committee is to me the most important because it's like, it's been said 100 times, it's about our kids. What the nice part is that, I've become a jack of all trades with everybody here that I've learned from, obviously not a master, but it's great to know that we have them in place to guide the district forward. It's this common it drives me crazy. And this is not from a school board perspective, just being a teacher, I get it. They're like, oh, well, how hard is it? You're right, it's cake. Like, there's no work that goes into prepping, creating, from vetting books to creating curriculum to, there's a lack of understanding of
Mhm.
what goes in and all the dedication and all the time that's put in by everybody. And so we, from the mental health to dealing with, new standards and, so I personally appreciate it, being on the board, whether or not, I'm a committee member or not, just, knowing that we, and I think our scope of work has changed a bit in the last year and a half to 2 years. And I appreciate this direction because we can still honor and recognize everybody who has done fantastic things in the district, but we can also get to the nitty-gritty of how a district functions. And it's most importantly is the kids. So that's it. Now, one thing before I move on to advisory committees, there letter M, which we were going with an amount of
$12,138.
$12,138, and that was option 2, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And then letter K would be Lincoln.
Not frontline.
Okay. So I would like to group 5A through N with those changes. For K, the recommendation for Linkit, and for M for option 2 in the amount of $12,138. I'd like to make a motion. Anybody make a motion?
I will make a
the
motion for that.
Okay.
I second it.
Okay, I have a first and a second for all items under 5A through N. Any discussion? Okay, discussion?
I
sorry.
neglected to share that the samples of elementary science
Yes.
are in our office as well, along with the rating form for the multiple products that the team looked
He's
at.
always available. Yeah, okay, thank you. All in favor of moving those forward?
I
Aye. Opposed? I have none. All right, our next meeting in July or July 10th, 2025 has been canceled, and we will reconvene on August 7th of 2025. And before I call for my last portion, Dr. Vitale, let's see if you
So
want.
this is Dr. Piperato's last meeting with us. So we just wanted to honor her service as both a middle school principal at JTL and as the director of secondary curriculum. So thank you, Dr. Piperato. Don't go anywhere.
Okay. Oh my
Andy,
goodness.
under the table. So look, guys, there's food too.
Oh my goodness.
We'd like to thank you.
Oh, thank you both. Oh my goodness. That is wonderful. I
And
mean,
although we know we're in good hands with Amy.
yeah.
He's gonna be missed.
You know, I'm a phone call away.
I know.
Oh, and flowers.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. I appreciate it so much. Yep. A pleasure to serve this district, and it's been a real pleasure to get this last year and a half to serve. We feel like we've really, today we had a little thing in the beginning that, and Tabitha asked, you know, some questions. What's your greatest legacy? What are you gonna like the most? All that, and it's just this last year and a half, we're finally able to accomplish what we feel 8 years ago we were tasked to do in the first place. So we're very grateful for this, and I'm like, really? I'm leaving now? But it's time for me, and looking forward to joining you next year in a little bit of capacity and handing off the baton to a wonderful colleague. So thank you.
He's been great transitioning, so thank you for all you're doing.
Yeah,
Thank you, Dr.
this is
Piperato.
very kind. Thank
Thank
you.
And you have to eat all those cookies and cupcakes yourself. Wait, so we were gonna share. That's just funny.
So first of all, I'm Italian, so we always make sure there's a lot of food. And two, I was like, well, what if people don't like cupcakes? Okay, let me get cookies, and then they had the Italian cookies. So there we go.
So I would like to make a motion to enjoy some cookies and adjourn.
Yay.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.